With Bitcoin now completing a massive giga cross on the one-day time frame, mommies worldwide are glued to the charts as even the weekly is now doing something insanely big. But what if I told you the word big simply isn't big enough? Bitcoin right now is quite literally absolutely on the verge of something that will knock your socks off. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say the banana zone has never been closer. So if you want to buy Bitcoin or altcoins, get signed up to FEMEX below. And without any further ado, let's absolutely dump on into these charts, which are quite literally on the verge of absolute annihilation in a very real sense, in a very good way. What do I mean by that? Well, look at this chart. If you take a zoom in look at this chart, for example, let's actually zoom in here. This looks as though over the most recent rejection right here, will most likely lead us in this direction. But this is the twist. It's actually an inverted chart, right? This chart is inverted, meaning this is where we recently bottomed, and it looks as though we're about to break this 70K resistance and head up. This is just a nice little trick that people do, which I like because it honestly resets your psychology a little bit and kind of removes bias, even if it's for only 5 seconds. Again, I'm starting the video with this, so I just want to repeat. This is an inverted chart. Basically, you look at this, let's say it wasn't inverted, this looks like we're about to actually enter a downtrend after this most recent rejection. But in fact, as the top comment says here, the chart is inverted, right? It's inverted. So it's a nice way of getting a good picture of kind of where we're at. So I want to look at a lot more things, but first, you can see if we look on the daily chart for Bitcoin, we just had a bullish cross just recently for the first time since the last bullish cross back in May, which honestly didn't do too much. We also had a bullish cross here though in February, which did actually precede a really nice move, a really nice run up. And as you can see, we just got another one of these. This is, as I said in the last video, like it's big, but it's, you know, how big can it really be? It's not too big. This is something, however, that is big in my opinion. So we look at this chart, and you see the Bitcoin weekly chart. This is where I think things get really big. Now, you can see we're above the 100, the 50, the 21-week moving average. Now we were not above the 21-week moving average for well over a month, actually. Or right about a month is where we were below the 21-week after falling below it for the first time since back in September of 2023, so almost a year. But the biggest thing here is this, and this is what I keep coming back to. I think it's so important. I think it's absolutely probably the most important thing on the weekly chart is the MACD after topping out back on beginning of April, kind of right before the Bitcoin halving. We went through, as you can see, multiple weeks starting, the momentum really started to shift back in the towards the end of March. And here we are months later, about 4 months later, massive. We had, you know, a lot of sideways, but there was some downtrending action. It was basically a combination of dumpy and sideways, not a ton of pumpy in the last 4 months. And that's also illustrated by this chart right here. It's, you know, mainly sideways, but there were some dumps. But overall, this level right here, we could just absolutely not get through. Now on the weekly chart for the MACD, finally, and this is where it gets really big, look how this is the closest momentum has been to one, initiating a bullish cross on the MACD, but also this really deep weekly momentum switching back to positive, back to upside, back to bullish momentum. The last 3 weeks specifically, we have really seen what looks to be at this moment potentially the, you know, verification or the confirmation that the massive bearish momentum, bearish pressure we were facing has ceased. Now, what exactly happened in then? Well, we had, you know, Germany selling tens of thousands of Bitcoin, Mt. Gox being released back to creditors, and a lot of things that were basically fundamentally putting downward sell pressure on Bitcoin that are outside of charts. However, the charts kind of like tell a similar story anyway. The charts show us pretty much what that momentum, which way the momentum has been swinging, and all the charts are showing right now, and it's almost to be expected, however, is that very likely we're going to be seeing this momentum really start picking up bullishly in the very short term. Now, earlier today, actually, Bitcoin was right at about, I believe, 70,000. Price has come down since then. If we actually look at like a daily chart, I mean, it's really pretty insignificant. I have to zoom in so much for it to be like, okay, yeah, so we were right at about what, 70? We got rejected off 70, down about 3 to 4% from those highs, from those fresh multi-week, even multi-month highs, going all the way back to, well, pretty much the very beginning of June. So Yes, Bitcoin's first attempt to break above 70 since falling below it over about 2 months ago. First time trying to get above 70 in about 2 months. First attempt was a rejection. Absolutely, in my opinion, again, irrelevant. It can take, maybe it'll take a couple days. Maybe it'll happen by the end of the day. Maybe it'll take a couple attempts to get above 70. Ultimately, if you would ask me the question, do I think Bitcoin's going to be getting above $70,000 in the near term? My answer would be yes. I think that, I mean, if I would just show you my opinion in one chart, it's basically like something like that, right? But overall, yeah, this momentum continues to swing positively. That doesn't mean that we can't get a couple $1,000 drop in 2 hours or something. It's all irrelevant, I think, because if you zoom out and look at this actual structure, we have this very clear top, this very clear resistance. However, what we've done is also put in a very strong bottom as well. This most recent one, I think, got a lot of people scared because it was a lower low compared to the May 2nd low back here on July 5th, about 3-4 weeks ago. However, then we put in a higher low right here, and overall, there's a few reasons why this is big. Really, we want to see Bitcoin get above 72,000, which is not the all-time high. The all-time high is about almost 74,000. But realistically, even getting back above just 70, which we've just tapped for the first time, as I said, in 2 months today, that's really big. It's really good for the momentum of Bitcoin. We look at the VRVP as well. The massive amount of accumulated volume that we bounced at is exactly about that $57,000 level that we bounced at the very beginning of July. So on the weekly, again, that VRVP support held up. That worked. Right, these levels of volume I've had on the videos on these charts for months and months, and literally this entire run up since the beginning of 2023, end of 2022. So overall, again, this momentum, we bounced exactly where basically Bitcoin should have bounced. Very good. But now you can see, if we zoom in, you can see we're actually now above the 21-week moving average again, which is this green line. That's very healthy. Now, if you can draw something like this, where there's a descending level of resistance, that's why it's likely that Bitcoin, pretty much, we're right there. If Bitcoin's able to break right above 70, it's very likely we could see a big pop well above the previous all-time highs around 74, right? Quickly accelerate. Again, I think I saw some people even have it drawn as kind of like a descending channel here, which also, or like a descending broadening wedge, something like that. Either way, it looks like a bull flag in the sense that a lot of bears got trapped on some of these moves, but ultimately, if you zoom out and look at what the structure of this move is, I think we're going to look back and look at this part that we're in right now, just the same as we were back in 2023, the summer of 2023. This is actually kind of very easy to see, and also kind of obvious. Like you have to almost lie to yourself to think that this is some kind of new thing. This happens like fairly often, quite literally exactly last year, in the summer of last year, we had a boring sideways summer where there were a lot of bearish people right here because Bitcoin went from about 15, 16K up to about 32. And man, the people that were posting pictures like this showing, hey, next stop is 10K, those were the people that were getting the most retweets, the most engagement. Those were the people that were the most confident, and it literally did the exact opposite. And what are the chances that, what are the chances we actually still might be in a bull market? Basically, all objective, unbiased data is telling us that. So again, I'm sticking to the same story, which so far has been absolutely correct since the end of 2022. I think we're going a lot higher, to sum it up. Before we look at a few more of those, let's take a look at this. So Rookie XBT saying you can buy Bitcoin for the same price as you bought it in 2021. But what has happened? Well, we have Mt. Gox selling behind us now, Gemini as well, Germany, the seized US Bitcoin also potentially behind us. What's ahead? Rate cuts. The environment looks much better the macro environment looks much better, which absolutely has always historically helped Bitcoin pump. FTX cash repayments. We see potential US strategic stockpile and just simple game theory. He says, plan on treating a breakout from here as the real all-time high breakout. So I think the next breakout, in my opinion, I agree. I think the next breakout will be the breakout. And what I say by that is I think Bitcoin will have its breakout, its most explosive, most financially opportune time to make the most money from Bitcoin of the cycle. And then I believe altcoins will have their day as well. Usually when Bitcoin kind of cements itself at some new all-time high, significantly above its previous all-time high, which for us right now is like 70K. We also see this though, that people doubting Bitcoin can smash 200K in the short term. Remember, Nvidia went from a $1.3 trillion market cap to 3.3 in just 6 months. This is a stock. Bitcoin has had way crazier moves than Nvidia, but it's just showing that even Nvidia can do insane things. Granted, this is basically the hottest stock of the last year, but it has basically to do with AI is why Nvidia started blowing up in chips and semiconductors. But Bitcoin itself, I mean, Bitcoin is heavily tied into, well, I think something even more bullish, basically just inflation and debasement of global money. But also there's, AI even ties into Bitcoin in a big sense, right? There's good projects in AI, specifically in crypto. But if Bitcoin just did the same move as something like Nvidia, which is now like over $3 trillion in market cap, basically almost $200,000 in the next couple of months before this year even ends. Not only is that realistic, to me, it could very easily turn into a lowball estimate. $180,000 in the next 6 months. I personally think it could be much greater than that. I just think that's like a very safe base case. Okay. We take a look at this entering the banana zone, according to Quinton here. So the banana zone, basically you have the Bitcoin halving right here. You have the boring zone, and then you have the banana zone. Basically what the banana zone is just when the price goes most parabolic, the most pumpy part of the Bitcoin markets. And yes, banana zone potentially incoming big time. We see that we look at the Bitcoin chart, Mustache on Crypto saying that we're above the EMA ribbon. Looks like 2012, 2016, and 2020, just before the entire market exploded. He's saying the next 6 months will probably be the strongest of this entire run. Okay, so we take a look here. You can see back in 2016, actually zoom out again. You can see 2012, 2016, 2020. These setups are so similar. And really, there is going to be a time when it's not going to be the opportune time to start investing. And I personally think it's very soon. I think that if you're not already in this market, in my opinion, I think that you have largely missed out and you're about to miss out on the largest gains of the cycle, period. And if you start investing in this market in about 6 months, I'm just going to be honest. I don't think that's definitely not the smartest move. You had way more opportunities. Myself and quite literally hundreds of other people have been kind of showing just the synchronicity, the rhyming of these Bitcoin cycles for quite literally years. And it's okay if you discover crypto, let's say in 6 months, and you maybe get excited about it because maybe everyone's euphoric and you hear about it for the first time. Although, I mean, I wonder how many people on the earth have never really heard of it in like first world countries. 'Cause I feel like most people have at least heard of it, even if they've not invested. But if maybe if you're hearing about it for the first time and you don't care that it might take 4 years to really build a big position, then hey, that's fine. But if you've been like ignoring Bitcoin and you think it's a scam, and then all of a sudden you decide, hey, actually, I think it's going to be really profitable. You decide that in maybe 3 months from now. I'm just going to be honest. That's really silly. That's dumb. Okay. You had so many other opportunities. I think that we're about to witness the biggest pump of this cycle. What does that mean though? Innately is that once we witness that biggest pump, that's the biggest pump. You can't expect other massive pumps in Bitcoin. Could they happen? Of course. Nobody can predict the future. I just think that if you were to make a bet, it would be silly to try to say, Bitcoin's at 200K now. Okay, now it's probably going to go to 400K. That's not a good bet, right? The better bet is that we're sitting right on previous all-time highs, just like as I'm showing you this chart, we have done many times before. And look what happens specifically when we're there, and also specifically a few months after the Bitcoin halving, which is exactly now. If we fast forward 1 year from now, it will not be right after a Bitcoin halving and your maximum opportunity is done. Again, nobody can predict the future, but that is just, you have to base your investing on something, and just, you gotta base it on history a little bit. As long as history has been as correct as it has been so far, then, that's not a bad bet to continue to do that until it proves otherwise. Again, this chart really illustrates you have these areas right before and after the halvings that there's a lot of sideways, a lot of chop, but then look what quickly happens after you kind of leave this box after these halvings. And we're basically there right now. Doesn't mean it'll be by tomorrow. It could take a few more weeks. It could even take a couple more months. I personally think, however, that by September, by October, I think that my opinion is I think Bitcoin will be above 6 digits by those months. That's just my personal opinion. Again, just so many macro patterns shaping up. For example, the last few weeks as well, the stock market has not even doing well, and Bitcoin has. So there is a little decoupling, inverse correlation there as well. But overall, Bitcoin tapped on 70 for the first time in 2 months today. It's down a little bit right now, but overall, this structure is impeccable. The structure is very, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's exactly what I expect. Myself and no one can predict exactly what day Bitcoin will break out, and it's dumb to even try because who cares really if you can get the exact day? I mean, I guess if you could get the exact day, you could be a trillionaire or something, but like nobody can predict the exact second, the exact moment. But if you have a rough idea of where it's going and you can just be patient and not second guess yourself, then you can make a lot of money and you can be very successful. And it really is that simple. But people overcomplicate it by getting their emotions in the way and second guessing themselves. And, you know, oh, maybe Bitcoin's been sideways and dumpy for a couple months. They lose conviction then. And all you have to do is not lose conviction. All you have to do is make a plan and stick to it. That's how I made like most of my, literally 99% of my net worth is invested in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. That's for a reason, right? And so far it's paid off. It's been a good journey. And get set up to FEMX or BINGX below for my Bitcoin or altcoins. Without further ado, that's it for me.